Hey, what is up? It's Jim, and I'm back with another Tiller tip. This week, we are talking about expectation gaps. Man, if you've never heard of that term, I'm so glad I get to share it with you. This is everything that I'm about because I am an expectation gap coach. At Tiller Coaching, we help people who are stuck or suffering in the expectation gap. And it's such a privilege. It's an amazing thing we get to do. I love that we get to give it away, kind of the missionary model of raising funds from people who believe in the vision to be able to give it away to people that are stuck in these gaps. And what a great thing. We're removing barriers, for people getting help and for people getting discipled. I love it so much. So, if you're not aware of what the expectation gap is, let me walk you through it really quick. I know I did a Tiller tip about this last summer 2025. But here it is. We all have hopes and expectations for, marriage, parenting, career, life in general. Often reality comes in underneath that. And in this space between reality and expectations, the expectation gap, we find disappointment, dissatisfaction, and distress. And I just think that those are things we shouldn't walk alone in. So what a privileged thing to be able to be a Tiller coach, giving it away to people stuck in that gap. So that's the expectation gap. If you want more, go back and find that Tiller tip called Overcoming Your Expectation Gaps. But this one is kind of a different take on expectation gaps because expectation gaps are very much like a present reality. It's something that we're feeling in the here and now. But there is a future element to expectation gaps that often we can experience. And I call it the assumed expectation gap. We look at like an opportunity, something that's in the future, something that could happen to us, something we could choose, something future orientated. And we're like, I don't know how I feel about that. I see this thing, but I also see the potential for massive expectation gaps. And I don't like that. I think I'm going to experience disappointment, dissatisfaction, or distress in said thing, and everything in me wants to opt out. And I think most of the time when we analyze things like that, we will opt out. We will say, you know what, thanks but no thanks. I'm fine. I'm going to chill here. The status quo is fine. And that makes a lot of logical sense. Like, I do get that. And trust me, I've wrestled with that before and I've even opted out, but I don't think that generally works out for us. Now, there's certainly times to opt out of the assumed expectation gap. I'm not saying 100% of the time we have to opt in, but I actually think that there's a dynamic that's so real here. We see this load of disappointment over there. And instead of taking the chance, when we don't actually know, right? It might be a smaller gap than we think. There might be no gap at all. We just don't know how that's actually going to play out. So that's why it's assumed. It's guesswork, honestly. So it might not be that bad if we opted in. But by opting out, we actually, I think, normally just accept disappointment. In fact, the disappointment that we're accepting might be as big as the disappointment that we're opting out of. Does that make sense to you? Do you see it the same way I do? Like, let me give an example. So, I've been doing Tiller coaching for 6 years now. That's crazy. I started working at LifeGate 9 years ago. Oh my gosh, I am getting so old. Like right here, right now, it's happening. So 9 years ago, when I was kind of talking with LifeGate about coming on staff, I was really whingy about it. I looked at that thing and it was like, dude, that expectation gap isn't just assumed. It felt tangibly real to me. I'm like, I'm going to experience disappointment, dissatisfaction, and distress. I was in a pretty wounded place. My previous church experience did not, frankly, go very well in a lot of ways. And I just was like pretty negative on a lot of things. And so I looked at the opportunity and I'm like, oh gosh, expectation gaps all up in that thing. And I almost opted out. I was praying against it. I'm like, Lord, I don't want to do this. He had given me this opportunity, but I'm like, I don't want to do it. And I'm glad I opted in. Frankly, the expectation gaps were real, but they weren't that big, okay? And, I could deal with them. It really was great. Like, it was a good endeavor for me. And truly, I needed those 3 years to get me to a place where I could do tiller coaching. Without that season, I wouldn't be doing this thing. It just would not have happened. I absolutely believe that. So I'm so glad I didn't opt out on the assumed expectation gap, okay? The other dynamic I believe about this is that, like, we look at that assumed expectation gap and we don't want to do it. And so, we're basically just, taking on that load of disappointment, but somehow it's better because we chose it. We could control it, even if that gap is just as big as opting in, right? The difference between the two, though, is because we are assuming control. Control's a dynamic that is, like, incredibly sinful and really does separate us from God. I think that Jesus is less likely to help us in our disappointment when we opt out of said thing as opposed to when we go for it. Do you believe me on that? Like, I wholeheartedly believe this. It's because control really becomes a separating factor. Like, Jesus is over there at the place of the assumed expectation gap. He goes before us. We are better off typically going for it because if we do experience, that assumed expectation gap is a realized expectation gap and it's massive and it's hard, well, Jesus is over there ready to comfort us. We're not blocking him because of control. It's like we are much more willing to get and accept Jesus's help and comfort. That's an unequivocally good thing. So, real talk, like, I have been wrestling with some stuff over the last few months, some assumed expectation gap things that I've been slow to pull the trigger on and make the decision on, but I'm doing it. I am actually opting in. I'll get to share more about that over the next few months or whatever, but I am trying to figure out how to opt in, and there's a lot of work between me and the opting in, and I have to figure it out, but I'm not scared of it. If it goes poorly, if the assumed expectation gap becomes realized, I know it's going to be okay. I'm actually going to be really proud of myself for going for it, but also I know that Jesus is going to use that and he's going to comfort me. So, if you're looking at things in the future and you see the assumed expectation gap, I know it's going to be tempting to opt out, and maybe that's okay. Okay. Like, it's not unequivocally like, oh, you just have to always go for it. Like, be a yes man. Although I love that. I just think that, often we do wrong by opting out. And, I think a lot of us end up doing it because of fear. And I don't want to be about that. So the assumed expectation gap, guys, it's not that bad. It's going to be all right. Jesus is there. You need to know that. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. I definitely appreciate you guys checking these out and being part of the Tiller fam. Love you, and I will see you next time. See ya.